Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. I'm sure you can already tell or hear it. I have been sick, and of course, the show must go on because bringing resources, information, people's stories to you is really important. Uh, as we go, and we'll see if my brain will catch up and keep going along with me today. I unfortunately was traveling and I got that C word. I don't even want to mention it, but it is still kind of sitting in my head. So we'll see if my brain will keep going with us today. So it all is very helpful as we go throughout this life to really understand people's background, understand their story. And the whole purpose of this show is to share those experiences, the lived experiences, so that you know maybe you're going through something similar or you know somebody that is going through something similar. Really knowing that you're not alone and that there are other people out there that may be experiencing something similar. Although we'll never know exactly what somebody's going through because we could even be in the same exact experience and take it two different ways. But we can showcase that, hey, life gets hard at times and it maybe doesn't go the exact way that we thought it was going to go, but there is light, there is hope, there is a way through. And that's sometimes what people need the most, is knowing that they're not alone. Because when we have these experiences, in those moments it can feel like I'm the only person that understands what is happening. But really, that's not true. There's so many others in this thing that we call life that have very similar experiences. So that's the whole point of this show, is bringing you as the audience resources, stories, and people, because you may not know about these people and having those hard conversations. So, without further ado, that was a long-winded intro. I want to introduce my guest for today. And so, my guest, her name is Alexis McKinley. I might have said that wrong. You can correct me if I did. So she has battled her own demons as long as she can remember. And now she is surviving proof that if you want it, anything is possible. So I will let her share her story with you. Alexis, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. First, you did say it right the second time. It is McKinley.
Okay, I was like, wait, I didn't say that right.
No, you said it right. Thank you for having me first. I guess I'll start at the beginning. I grew up in addiction. My mom was an addict. I was an addict at a very young age, starting at 14. And then I was diagnosed with hepatitis C when I was 16. Addiction most of the time goes hand in hand with criminal behavior. So I got into criminal behavior at a very young age. I've been to prison 2 times. The second time I got a 20-year sentence. Before that, I didn't want to live. I was doing everything I could to not live. That whole escapade was me trying to find somebody to do it for me because I was too scared to do it myself. I'm actually very thankful for prison. A lot of people will not say that. A lot of people are very angry at prison, but it saved my life 100% every step of the way. I went in a very dark and angry individual. I don't even recognize the person that I used to be. And because my mom has been in addiction, everybody knew my mom also. So it actually took a lieutenant that sat me down, listened to my story, and basically asked, what do I need to do to keep you out of here? And that's what we did. We worked on every single program that I could and fixed myself as best as I can. I still struggle every day to be able to get out and just be successful, be the person that I was meant to be.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that first and foremost. And I just so my brain's like going in lots of different ways, but I'm curious. So you said 14 when it really started, and I, knowing that your mom was also an addict, and did you feel like, okay, the question, I'm like, what is the question formulating? Did you feel like it was a learned behavior, or was it like a mixture, like peer pressure? Like, how do you think that it came around at 14?
I think it was teenage rebellion, and I won't really say a learned behavior because I split some of my growing up with my grandparents, which are amazing. That's really where I was instilled right and wrong and morals and life understanding. Teenage rebellion is really what it was, because at a certain age, I decided I wanted to go live with my mom again because I didn't really know her. And as a teenager, you know a lot of things. And I was sleeping on the couch in the living room at the time and staying up all night and partying. Like, that's just not a normal behavior. So I knew something was going on. That's really when addiction started. I had kind of dabbled in other drugs, not really addiction, earlier than that. But the real addiction started at 14, and I started it beforehand, and then eventually started getting high with my mom.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I reflect on when I was younger, and I know the whole rebel thing. I actually was born and raised Mormon originally, and then it was really like I ended up getting pregnant at 15 and had my daughter at 16. Like, so I just, it, as a parent now, I feel like 14 so young, but then I also reflect on my own and I was like, I started way before that. So, you know, it's one of those that you're like, wow, it seems young when you get older, but when you're in that, yeah, it starts, I mean, younger and younger, as we know.
And you think you know it all at that age.
Yeah. 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 You're like, oh, I'm not going to get hurt. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when you talk about, I know you said that you had dabbled in prior to that, but when you talk about addiction, I mean, was it drugs, alcohol, a mixture?
My main drug of choice was crystal meth. I started smoking it, and within a year, I was shooting it up.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, things just lead into other things. And I know that, I guess, based off of accessibility and then you really went down this path of maybe not the best route. So tell me a little bit more about, I know you said you went to prison twice. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the first time I went to prison was when I was 21. I had to think back, I had to count backwards. I was 21 years old. It was for, it was either burglary or car theft. I don't quite remember the exact charge. And then possession. I got 4 years that time. I only spent like 6 months in, got out. I was sober for 7 years. And I put myself in bad situations. I was bartending. I was an alcohol promotion model, situations that a previous addict should not have put themselves in, because when one thing goes wrong, that's the excuse that you need. And you kind of say, F it, and start getting high again. And as an addict, you don't just start off slow and know that you can handle it slow. It's right back into where you were right before you stopped. So that's kind of what it was. And from that period, when I started getting high again, a year later, I was back in jail.
Wow. So I've had a couple of guests on the show, and we've talked about addiction and recovery, and there are some people that they can quit cold turkey and then they never ever touch it again, right? And then you have those that start young and then you end up getting sober, and then there's, like you just said, is once you jump right back in, it's like you're in there again and it triggers that part of your brain. The challenge or the question, I guess, that's popping in my head, because I've never fully experienced that myself. Usually when I quit something and I'm done with it, but I think it's not even just like talking about drugs or alcohol. It's like kind of a addiction to different things, right? There can be all different types. It doesn't necessarily always have to be drugs or always be alcohol. There's so many other types of addiction, or as some people call it, an OCD type effect of like needing a specific thing. So I think when we talk about addiction and recovery, like there's so many different layers that need to be talked about too.
Absolutely. And it's really a disease in and of itself, because you can take one addiction that's unhealthy and you can replace it with a seemingly healthy situation like exercise. That can turn into addiction, which can then lead to the unhealthy aspects of it. And so really addiction in itself is a disease. Like, people have addictive personalities and some don't, and that's just kind of how our brains are wired. I'm one of those. Well, without prison, I wouldn't have been able to do that, but I didn't really do much therapy. I just kind of, once I say I'm done, I'm done.
Mm.
And that's just what it is. My brain is done. Everything. Like, I look at people, I have pictures of myself from back then, and I look at it and I'm like, you know, it just makes me so sick now, because I feel like I finally, getting that 20-year sentence is really what I needed. At first, in the moment, I thought my life was over and I wanted it to be over. But now I see it for the blessing that it really was.
Wow. And I have heard that before. And so my brain is like, what are you talking about? Like, how could that be a blessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then also it is, when you think about the cycle of addiction, and you were sober for 7 years and then you just dove right back in. And was it like a, well, I guess I'm curious what the charge was to get 20 years.
Within a 2-week period, I racked up 70 charges. 68 of them were dropped, but it was aggravated motor vehicle theft and burglary.
Mm. And once you like went back in, was that just when the process started? Like how was it really helpful for you?
I think without the staff that would have kind of sat down and talked to me, I probably would have been that angry little girl in my head for a very long time. Honestly, the staff helped me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to hear that, it's amazing for me, because so often we hear the bad that happens, right? Like they get thrown into jail and then they have seizures because they're coming down, or, like those are the things that I hear often, is the bad part. You don't hear the good part. So I love hearing that there is good staff out there that can help people through whatever they're going through and into recovery.
There really is. I think what really needs to be broken down is like an us versus them mentality. And that's a lot of what prison is, because there's that, as humans, we try to fit in.
Mm.
And somewhere down the line, we need to break that misconception of fitting in is what I need to do. Really, this is a time where you can sit down in timeout, whatever you want to call it, and work on yourself. This is your time to really sit down, find the root causes. Why were you using? A lot of the times it's self-medicating. Some people may not even know that they have mental illnesses until they really sit down and talk to somebody about it. And so once you find those root causes, then you can really start working on fixing or getting over or talking about how to move past that.
Mm. Yeah, I think that just having resources inside prison or jail is so beneficial, but also having the staff that's trained to be able to assist in that process. I mean, I just look at it as how much more impactful could we be in society to be able to actually help people versus just incarcerating them and just like throwing them to the wolves. That's how I think about it when I'm like they just throw you in there and they don't care and they don't do anything. But it is amazing to hear that there is places and facilities that are equipped with knowledge and resources.
That and the programs. I think the most beneficial one to me, and I actually work for them now, is a program called Breakthrough. Amazing. And they kind of have like a multi-step approach, and it teaches you soft skills, hard skills, entrepreneurial mindset, which isn't just about starting your own business. You kind of have to have that mindset in life, in any job. But then they also offer post-release support. And so they're with you for life. And yeah, I'm excited to be a part of that now just because they help me exponentially.
Wow, that's amazing. I recently talked to another nonprofit who in Colorado, they help with release because that is, I mean, you think about military and incarceration, and oftentimes we're not very good at that transition on either side. And so it's exciting to hear that there are programs being built around that are helpful, and they're with you for life, which is amazing because then it keeps you, I mean, after 20 years. So did you spend the full 20 years?
I did not. I spent 7 years. I made it a point to not get any write-ups, not get in trouble. And so I was eligible for the halfway house. So I did go to a halfway house. And then from there, I went to intensive supervised parole and then regular parole. And now I'm off parole.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then having that program, and now you're working for the program.
I am. Yeah, I love it. And well, and here's the thing, like when it comes to post-release support, if you think about it, many addicts have been involved in addiction for a very long time. And that's all the people that they know are people in addiction. They don't know healthy people. And getting out with support and without resources and without knowing what to do is really one of the key factors in deciding, am I going to go back to that life or am I going to succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, but we're going to go to our first quick sponsored break. And then once we get back, I had a question that's popping in my head as related to that. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break. I lost my middle sister, Kelli, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
My story, Oliver, it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor and a recovering addict. For 14 years, I was in active addiction. And because of Kelli and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here. And if it wasn't for Kelli answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
Curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community, it is very hush hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelli because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question because it is different and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Kelli's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelli's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, and her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
And like that, we're back. If you just joined us, thank you so much for tuning in to the Make Mental Health Matter show. Whether you are listening or watching, we appreciate you being here. And you missed some really juicy stuff, so make sure you go back and watch the first part of this. But my guest today, Alexis, we are chatting about her experience through addiction, going into prison, and then now outside. And so you had mentioned before we went to the break, talking about how when you're in this space through addiction, like the people that you surround yourself with are people who are also experiencing addiction, and maybe not the most or the best relationships. It might even be more toxic than it is helpful. And you went into prison, which you said really saved your life and ultimately got you to this place that you were clean and sober and building resources and skills. And now you're working for the program, which helps with that transition and for life outside of prison. And the important part that I heard you say is you didn't know many people that were sober or that were positive and not, I guess, toxic is in my brain how it's playing out. But so being able to access resources like the program that you work for now is very helpful to get connected into the right community. So can you talk a little bit more about the power of community? Because that's something that we talk a lot about within our nonprofit.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one thing about addiction is you really can't go to the same place. You have to change people, places, things. And if you don't change even one of those things, then it's really easy to go right back to it. So I came up to Denver. I'm from Colorado Springs. I didn't know anybody in Denver. I didn't know anywhere. I didn't know how the transit system worked. I came up here blindly because I wanted to change my people, places, and things. Because of Breakthrough, the program that I work for now, they helped me to get a job. So I had a couple of, we call them any jobs in the programs. It's like you have to get something, you have to be self-sufficient, you have to be able to put money in your pocket to survive. It's not going to be glamorous. I worked traffic control. It was horrible. It was very hard and it was very dangerous. Then they actually set me up with a job called Checker. They're a background check company. Coming from my background, I didn't know that I could get a job like that, but they are actually a very fair chance company. I'm very thankful for the one experience that I learned, because the only thing I knew was I hated background checks. But they help to get a job. They help with bus passes if you need bus passes, because a lot of people get out of prison with no money. Prison pays, when I was there, it was like 60 cents a day. So it's not a lot. You get out with nothing. They help you with clothes. They help you with work clothes. They help you with everything. Food, if you need help with like places on where to get food. So it's like these are all things that, and I'm going to say this wrong, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of need. I believe it is, that you need in order to survive. And without even one of those, survival is not great. And so we kind of take like a holistic approach and looking for everything that is needed: hygiene, work, mental health. We have mental health resources, and just trying to help reintegrate back into society, because a lot of people, some people have been in prison for 20, 30, 40 years. Think back. I was alive 40 years ago, barely. The world is so different. Mm-hmm. To be gone that long, you need help. Technology. We set them up and teach them how to use technology. We provide a phone, a Chromebook, like all things that you need to really look for a job and be successful.
Wow. And then, that's amazing. I mean, just the resources that they offer. And sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. But then, so most of this goes to graduates from the program, but then we also have kind of a subset of that, because we want to help as many people as possible. And so we also do, it's called Circle of Hope, a recovery program that is open to everybody. So they can get the same kind of resources, maybe not like the reentry pack with the technology stuff like that, but we offer the same resources to be able to help them be successful too. Because I mean, it's great that we offer it to participants, but we want to offer it to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I just having, I mean, being able to offer that. And so it's really, well, I guess the question that I have, is it like based off of a certain county, a prison? Is it anybody in the state of Colorado? Or how does that work specifically?
So we are currently operating right now in 4 prisons. We're a very small company. We maybe 7 or 8. I don't know the exact number of employees. We're a very small company. We're working on trying to get more grants. We work on donations. So we're not government funded. So we're trying to slowly get into more prisons so we can help as many people as possible, but we don't want to skimp on the quality either, because if we're helping as many people as possible, but then we pull out and we don't give that quality of help, then what is that help really worth? So yeah, we're in 4 prisons currently. We are about to start in a 5th one soon, but we're slowly expanding.
That's amazing. I mean, just even having one, right? Like,
Mhm.
I feel like for a small company, and I totally get that, is I was, when I started my nonprofit, I'm like, I'm going to save the world. And then I'm like, I can't really save the world unless I save my community. And then I even had to like clearly define that, like, who
Mhm.
is our community? Like, I'm like, yeah, we're going to all of Colorado. And then I was like, I am only one person, so I can't all of Colorado. So even scaling back and knowing that you guys are expanding, I just think that's incredible to be able to first and foremost offer those services. I think that anybody listening that might be working inside or outside a prison or with recovery, this is definitely a model that would be very, very beneficial for and is it just women or men?
It's men. It actually started out in, so there was another company that started out in, I believe it was California, which kind of brought it over here. So it started in a men's prison, and I don't know if it was Arkansas Valley first. I don't know the exact first prison that it started in, but then it expanded, I think, to another men's prison, and then came to La Vista, where I was at, in 2018. So
Very nice. Yeah, and I think it's a model that could definitely be duplicated, because I do know, as you see on the first commercial that we went to, so I have one of our first staff people, and she is in recovery, and I have watched her navigate the system. She did not go to jail or prison, but became or was in addiction for a really, really long time. And I didn't fully understand that world until she really started helping me. And then I watched her go through the navigation of just trying to get into a sober house and get resources for housing and get resources for the bus passes, like you said, because it is, I mean, you don't have the skills because you may not be working during that time when you're in like full-blown addiction. And I do know, I mean, there was a good span of 7 years that she hadn't worked, but also has mental health challenges, which on top of that, then you talk about disability and all the other things that you just keep piling, right? Like it's like this pile and pile and pile. And then finally you get to this breaking point and you're like, I need help. And then nobody wants to help you. So having resources like you have is just so important.
well, and it's hard to even ask for help. Pride is such a crazy thing. I think if somebody is asking for help, I think we as society should do everything that we can. And obviously, we're a very long way from that. I feel like it's getting better. But asking for help is such a hard thing to do, but it's the first step to really admitting that there is a problem.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's not easy. We get it. We know like asking for help is not an easy thing to do, but definitely there are lots of resources, and that's the whole point that I'm just trying to get to. And I know that you work for the company, but you also have this experience that it has been beneficial for you, and even something that you're like, man, this is so helpful. Now I want to help give back, which I'm sure that is also helping in your sobriety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been sober for, it'll be 11 years in October now. Since 2013, when I got arrested, I decided it was enough. And nobody really wakes up and they're like, you know what I want to do with my life? I want to be an addict. That's exactly what I want to do. Like, that's not in anybody's head. It's not in anybody's mindset. You don't wake up and say, I want to go to prison. That seems like a great thing to do. It's kind of one thing piles on top of another and piles on top of another. You get high. It's the best feeling. It makes you forget everything. It makes you numb. And then from there on, you're chasing that feeling for the rest of your life until it stops.
Yeah. I think that's also important for people to hear is people don't choose that life, right? People, whether it is, I mean, now we talk a lot about trauma, childhood trauma, and where it stems from versus just the action behind what is happening. And so we need to uncover what is that thing that maybe it led into this place that you are trying to numb or that you are trying to cover. And that's the part that people sometimes miss, is that the piece of like, how did we get there? But also, how do we move through that so that we can, hey, whatever happened in the past happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it may not have been pretty. It may have been really, really messy, but there is a way through, and we can get to a place of recovery and a place that you're safe and be able to help offer resources and information and training and programs and all the things to be able to get people into a good space in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we are going to go to one more quick sponsor break. But once we get back, we'll just chat a little bit more about your story specifically too. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsor break.
Hi there, my name is Angelique Kapoor, and I am the host of Take the Lead, a consciousness movement with Angelique Kapoor. Join us on E360 TV every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Take the Lead, a consciousness movement with Angelique Kapoor.
I'm Dr. Audrey Tang, a chartered psychologist, and on my show, Mental Health Matters, we take a deep dive into all things mental health and well-being with the experts. So join us at 8 a.m. PST on Thursdays on the Fresh Takes channel, because mental health matters on E360 TV.
And like that, we're back. So we were just chatting really about how people get into the space of addiction, but then also can get into recovery. And being 11 years sober, congratulations, that is amazing. And I love that you, not that you wanted to get arrested and go into prison, but that you made that decision. It was like a very clear decision, like, I'm stopping this now, and I'm going to do everything that I can to make that happen. You also had an amazing staff in the prison that was able to help you, which I feel like is probably the most beneficial to really get you into that place. But then you also mentioned that, okay, you're going into prison, right? Like, you don't have anything else to do. So you might like take that time to reflect on, how did I get into this place? How can I make myself better? How can I, once I come out, like, I'm not going to get any negative check marks. I'm going to do everything that I can so that I don't actually spend 20 years in prison, because you had also mentioned, I mean, those people that do spend that amount of time, everything has completely changed on the outside world during those sentences. And if they get a chance to come out, right? But then that transition outside is really important, because you don't think about, well, I don't know if anybody thinks about this, but at least for me, I'm like, you don't think about like how little people are making inside jail. And then you're coming out and now you have this giant gap in your resume. You maybe don't have the skills that you did prior, because it could be the instance that you were in addiction and maybe you weren't working. But then you come out and you really need to like rebuild the resume of life. And so where do you turn? Who do you talk to? And that's why programs like the one that you're working for is so helpful.
Yeah. And you know, that's one thing that the program taught me, kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, is I may not have had the skills because I wasn't working. Let's call them job skills. However, I had life skills from things that I had done that can transfer to job skills. And I'll just use some examples, you know, like you're a drug dealer. Did that mean that you knew how to manage people? Did that know that you meant how to inventory and be resourceful? Like there's a lot of things that can really transfer. And I think once we normalize recovery and normalize people making mistakes and being okay to put those onto resumes and transferable areas and be able to talk about it without thinking like, oh, you're just a criminal, or back into the money thing, like, oh, they're criminals, they deserve that, they shouldn't have messed up. Like, I get it, people mess up, but we're also working on building ourselves back up. And without that community support, it's really hard, because it's so stigmatized of everybody's going to think I'm a criminal. Do I even talk about it?
Yeah, that's so, I mean, wow, how cool would that be to be able to like legit put that on your resume, like addict, right? I mean, it's a conversation. I mean, I'm trying to think, I had like a gap or something in my resume at one point in time, but I got a DUI when I was younger. And is that something that I always want to talk about, or do I want to let people know? I even got a tattoo. I call it "Don't Do It Again" tattoo, with the date of when I got it, because I was like, well, I don't want to experience that again. And so, yeah, normalizing the conversation. Hey, we all make mistakes. And if you don't, you're pretty lucky. But how can we normalize that conversation? I love that.
Well, and the fact that anybody really wants to talk about it and be honest about it shows that they're in the right mindset of change. It's the people typically that are trying to hide it, and then people find out about it later when something goes wrong, which I'm not going to say like prison changes everybody. It doesn't. You have one of two roads. You can either work on yourself or you can continue down the criminal path. It's very easy to do both. So the fact that people actually want to come out and talk about it should show you where their mindset is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there are lots of positive experiences and stories that people have come out of prison or jail, and they're really changing their life, and they are open to talking about it, which I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience, because I think these are the conversations that we need to start having. And how can we really start to shift the stigma around challenges, or like things that we did when we were young and dumb and not, our brain wasn't fully developed, or even later in life, right? Like it happens. We all make mistakes, but we also have choice to be able to shift what's happening in our life. And some of us choose to go down a good path. Some of us choose to not go down a good path, right? But it doesn't make us any less of a human.
Exactly. And I think we would get further as a society if we took some lessons from like Norway or Sweden, or kind of like the Nordic prison system, right? Because in America, we're focused on like penalizing. And over there, they're more focused on rehabilitation and reintegration. There's a huge gap, and we have to slowly work towards closing that gap. I think that is going to be where the most change is going to happen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be huge. I mean, you always hear that the prisons are overpopulated, right? Why?
So much. Mental health is a big one. Addiction is a big one. We're not focused on really looking at why did this happen. We're just looking at this happened, now you have to pay.
Yeah. Which is costing a lot of money. So
a lot of money.
I do know I spoke earlier this summer at a probation wellness event for probation officers. And then I actually am going to be speaking as a keynote speaker for the state of Colorado during their probation officers big conference that they do, which I'm very excited about, because we also have to identify the wellness of anybody inside the system. So when you talk like guards and the staff and probation officers and those that help, they really need to also be identified, and they need to start taking care of themselves to be able to help people more too. So, I think it goes both ways, like the people that are incarcerated and then those that support really need to look at this overall wellness aspect. And if we can go at it together, I mean, gosh, how powerful would that be to really get into this place of rehab and recovery versus just penalizing people for mistakes that they make.
Mistakes and even not being in the right mindset. I mean, it's okay to not have good days. Everybody has bad days. I feel like when somebody that's been in my situation has a bad day, though, it's kind of looked at worse. So it's almost like you learn how to mask really well. Normalizing having bad days and being okay about talking through it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I love to just use the word human. That's like my new thing. I mean, not new thing, but the last couple of years, I've just tried to identify people as human, no matter their background, no matter race, gender, your preference, what you've done in life, what mental health challenge you might be experiencing. We're all human. And if we can start to just shift a little bit into that space of not judging people, it would be really, really cool to be able to be in that space.
Exactly. And we're all human and we're all unique. And I love that, because how boring would it be if you and I were exactly the same? If everybody was exactly the same, there would be no fun.
Yeah.
Everybody's unique, and that's what makes the world tick. That's what makes it go round.
Yes. Well, I am so thankful that you came on my show. Is there anything that we maybe didn't cover that you wanted to cover or share with the audience, or some final words?
No, I think we covered quite a bit.
Well, I just so appreciate, I mean, I know you are willing and open book, as we talked before this, to share your experience. Not everybody is in that space to be able to really share what they've been through, but I love that you were able to come on and tell us about your story. Is there any place, if people want to just learn maybe more about you or maybe the program, where can they go to find that information?
I have a LinkedIn under my name. I don't post on it too much. I should probably start posting on it more.
Well, I'll drop it here because I do have it. Hey, right? Yes. So it is linkedin.com in Alexis Mckinley 683-857-217 question mark for those of you that are listening. But you can also look at the comments on the show and find all the links in there. And tell me one more time, what is the name of the program?
Breakthrough.
Breakthrough. All right, I'm going to put that up here. Break, if I can spell breakthrough.
And I guess I can add, we're always looking for volunteers. Breakthrough is a huge volunteer thing, and we go inside. And I will say one thing that I've heard from the volunteers is it's as life-changing as it is for the volunteers as it is for the inmates. Because for a lot of us, it's the first time we've actually been looked at as human. But a lot of people also come into prison not understanding what they're really going into. They go in scared, they leave life changed. So we are always looking for volunteers. Come in with us.
Nice. So Breakthrough, if you want to look that up, and again, it is in Colorado, so you can check that out. But I would love to just keep in contact and learn more, and maybe we'll have you come back some other time to be able to just keep us updated where you're at. And I so appreciate you being my guest for today.
I would love that. And thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. My brain kept up. Yay, brain. And I am just so grateful. Like I shared at the very beginning, is that we all go through experiences. We all have challenges in our life. That's what I call them, are challenges, because I feel like there's always a way through. We can break through whatever we've been through, and it doesn't have to define us. Our story doesn't have to define our whole entire life. We can make changes, we can make shifts. Sometimes unfortunate things happen that we get thrown in prison, but that could be a saving grace. Maybe you never thought of that before, but you might have somebody in your life that may be in addiction, that is really, really struggling, and you are at a place you're not really sure what to do. There's lots and lots of resources out there, in addition to the resources that we have on our website. So we have a trusted resource hub. If you go to makementalhealthmatter.org/trusted-resource-hub, we have lots of resources there that we are building every single day. And we're really jumping into the recovery and addiction space because there's so much need in that space right now. We actually are doing one of our very first fentanyl awareness and Narcan training, which I'm very, very excited about. And we're just looking to add even more resources and tools in that space. So if you are somebody that might be struggling or know somebody that is, please reach out to us. Check out our trusted resource hub on makementalhealthmatter.org, and you can just click on resources. But either way, no matter what you do, make sure that you come back next week, and you can either watch on E360 TV at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, or you can listen on Dream Vision 7 Radio at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. Simply say, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio. I will see you next week. Bye, y'all.